Have you looked at the scale lately? Not that scale, not talking about weight here, talking about the scale between work and life and trying to keep it all in balance. I know I have to recalibrate mine a little more often than I'd like to admit as an entrepreneur. Today, an expert weighs in on how to grind in your business without losing sight of life. Expert Connections starts now. Welcome to Expert Connections. I'm Julie Holton. In my 20s and 30s, I thought that this work-life balance thing was a fairy tale. That bright, shiny object, that thing of Disney movies that you're always seeking after, but it's never quite attainable. I was so in the grind that I just thought, it's all life, right? Work-life balance. Now in my 40s, I would like to believe that maybe this balance is attainable. So I wondered about it and I thought, well, let's bring on a guest to find out. Lisa Fisher is a founding investor for Keller Williams Realty Franchise in Lansing, Michigan. And among her list of roles and accolades, she was awarded the 2021 National Woman of the Year by the National Association of Commissions for Women. From McDonald's to Keller Williams, Lisa has developed training modules and global coaching programs for C-suite execs. So I'm hoping that perhaps she knows a little bit about work-life balance. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Julie. I'm so excited to be here today, especially for this topic. I think it is one that everybody could use some information on, or even just to talk about. What am I looking to achieve? Because you're right, work life balance. What is it? How do I achieve this thing? I don't know.
Yeah, this fairy tale. Well, okay, so you mentioned to me that this is a topic that you coach a lot of your clients through. So first, how do you define work-life balance?
Being present. When I really started thinking about it, like you in my later years, what does this balance look like? Because we only have so many hours in a day, and a lot of us are working the majority of those hours. So when I start thinking about being present at work, being present at home, being present with friends, and really it's about quality over quantity in many areas.
I was just on a meeting right before this where someone was talking about, he was stepping down from a board and talking about focusing on family instead of running around like his hair's on fire, trying to fit everything in and do all the things. Is that harder, do you think, in today's world where everything can be virtual if we want it to be, and we don't necessarily have to make time for drive time? Like, has the digital connections made it harder to achieve balance?
I think it depends on who you are. And when we start thinking about some folks are really good about just shutting things off. And one of the studies that I've been doing with the generations in the workplace, the younger generations that are coming in, they don't want to be married to their jobs. They don't, they want to have a start and a stop time. They want that quality time with their family. So I feel that digital has made it easier for them to get more things done, yet still focus on that work life balance. Some people that are like myself that have a little more of a challenge of drawing that line. It is more challenging because I've always got my computer open. I'm like, "Oh, I can take that call. I can answer that email," and getting better at not thinking I have to work around the clock.
Yeah, has this hybrid work environment or virtual working, especially in the years following COVID, is that making it harder for people to establish those boundaries?
To a degree, yes, because they'll get up in the morning, start looking at their computers, answering emails, answering questions while they're having coffee, not, not giving themselves their morning routine. They're jumping right into work. And I think sometimes digitally, because we're in an instant gratification society, people are thinking if I don't answer that email, if I don't take that phone call, they're gonna go somewhere else, they're gonna do business somewhere else, my boss is going to be mad at me, whatever that looks like. So you nailed it when you said boundaries It's all about setting and establishing what those boundaries are. I think about when I was growing up, our telephone was on the kitchen wall, right? It had a cord and everything, even those rotary dials. And now we just carry them around with us in the watches that we have. People are constantly checking and looking into the notifications that are coming their way. So it's making it more challenging to be present in the conversations that we're having.
Now, of course, some people watching might say, "Oh, that's not a challenge. I enjoy my work," or "This is a good thing. I'm not, I'm not noticing any negative effects of working from home and that sort of thing." But I'm curious, a lot of this we're talking about kind of the negative sides, maybe leading up to burnout. What are some of the early signs that we should watch for?
When we are listening to our friends and family members, you're never around. What are you looking at your phone for? What are some of those comments that people are saying to you? If you have young children at home, they know when that phone rings. And you can see even some of their body language on, oh, there she goes again, getting on the phone or the shrugging shoulders. But pay attention to some of those nonverbal cues that you're receiving from other people. I think also when you start looking at how much time passes away, I'm just going to check this email. And then you've checked 10 emails, another hour's gone away, and you're, now trying to figure out how do I get back to being present in the relationship, the conversation, the task that I wanted to get done.
Lisa, last night I happened to be working late on a project. We'll leave the time out of it, but was burning the midnight oil and found myself sending a message to one of my team members who immediately responded, again, really late at night. Do you think that employers have some sort of responsibility, that employers should play a role in supporting employees stepping away or having work-life balance? Or is it up to the employee to do?
I think the employer should also play a part in it because how many times is somebody just sending an email to get it off their plate, not expecting a person to answer, but because we haven't established those boundaries, we've not had that conversation. Now I think, oh my gosh, they want an answer from me. So I'm going to respond to this email, even though it's 9 o'clock at night. So it's having a mutual expectations conversation and participating and being able to help. I don't expect you to answer this email. And people need to advocate for themselves and find their voice. Don't call me when I'm on vacation. Don't text me. Don't email me. This is my vacation time. I've earned it and I'm spending time with family. But there's a little bit of sometimes fear that goes into that because they think that's the expectation is every time I send a message or a request, Teams and Messenger, however they're communicating, that we're looking for a response. And that's not always the case, but because we're not communicating clearly, we're not sure. But Julie, you touched on something when you're also talking about what are some of the signs to watch of that work-life balance, burnout thing, lack of sleep, not getting enough rest. That's another one because when we're burning the candle at both ends, our bodies get worn out. So that may be another sign is the fatigue, getting sick more frequently, that you might be stretched too thin.
Yeah, and guilty as charged. I thought when that team member messaged me back immediately, I thought, gosh, we can also as employers set boundaries, but then we have to lead by example. And that can be difficult if you're constantly looking for that work-life balance. So, what are some strategies that you talk about with your clients? How do you help people really figure out how to hone in? For instance, you said to be present. So what does that mean? How do you really start to develop that skill set, if you will, of being present?
So, depending on your circumstances, I have one client being present for them was being intentional at dinner time with their children and their family. No technology, sitting down, having conversations, and it becomes a routine. So maybe it's going on a date with your significant other or your spouse and leaving phones in the car. Just that being present in the conversation, establishing a time that you want to shut your computer down if you are working from home. Drawing that line is at 6 o'clock in the evening, no more getting on the computer. Things will wait till tomorrow. And it's so accessible. Everything is so accessible. So that makes that challenging. But also, oftentimes we create a budget for our finances. We know how much money's coming in. We know what our expenses are. If we want to buy something new, we might budget for it. I have clients create a budget for their time. Create what your perfect week looks like and start somewhere. If it's starting with a morning routine for yourself so that your self-care, because work-life balance isn't just that family and work or friends and work. We have ourselves to think of as well. How are we taking care of ourselves? So create that budget. How much time do you want to spend on the project you're working on? Or if you are a solopreneur or working from home, how much time do you want to work on the business versus in the business? And, you know, create that and have somebody hold you accountable to it. Hey, I thought you were supposed to be at lunch right now. Stop checking your email and go.
Yes. Okay, Lisa, you mentioned sleep. And I know, a lot of the entrepreneurs we talk to on this show of all levels of success, they have most of them, many of them struggled with sleep at some point in their lives. I think that's part of the grind. But, let's talk about some of the long-term effects of imbalance, sleep perhaps being one of them, which we know is so important. But what's at risk here if we don't address this? Because I think to some people listening, it maybe we're used to talking about the grind and getting ahead and growth but what's at risk here? Because we know there's a lot at risk.
Absolutely. Poor health is at risk. There could be financial loss if we're not getting enough rest. If we're out of balance, we could start missing. Things fall off the plate, right? We're
Oh,
trying
isn't that the
to.
worst?
Oh, it is. It is. We're saying yes to so many things. Practice saying no, because the more you're saying yes to, you're putting your scale out of balance and you're not giving stuff 100%. So the quality of the work that you're producing, the quality of time that you're spending with friends or family is slipping. And when we start thinking of, if we're always working and our friends are reaching out or our family members, they want to do something together, and we're always saying, "No, I'm working. No, I can't." They stop asking. So you're risking relationships. I mean, there's so many components that are from finances to health, mental health, not just physical health, especially when we're not getting enough sleep. But
Absolutely. Lisa, you mentioned something earlier I want to come back on and touch on a little bit, and that's the generational differences. I remember,
Mhm.
even 20 years ago, having a conversation with my mom about just some of the differences in our approach to changing careers or work life balance. So, what are some of the changes or what are some of the differences you see that you mentioned the younger generation. What are some things that we can learn from perhaps their approach to work life balance?
Mhm. I find that they're setting the boundaries. They're not allowing people to come in and steal their time. They're communicating in terms of, I can't start at 8 o'clock. I have to start at 8:30 because I'm dropping a child off at school or I have to pick them up. And it's not just women. So with the younger generations, kudos to the men that are stepping up and taking their turn in drop off, pick up, taking care of some of those things. Um, the philosophy of working long hours is not going to settle with them and they'll go somewhere else to work because they're not tolerating some of those old behaviors that are being implemented in. And when you start looking through the other generations, more and more of them are looking for, my home life is more important than my work. And they want that fulfillment.
And isn't that interesting when, back in the day, I remember, you look at back in the day before I had my own business. Now I look at it a little bit differently, but when you were comparing benefits from different job opportunities and looking at this as a line item, is work life balance something that's included? And will that make one organization more competitive over another? Lisa, I know a lot of organizations are ramping back up in their internal trainings, and you've been a part of creating programs and also working just internally in large organizations. Is this a topic that comes up? Do you see this being perhaps a competitive difference as people are examining where they want to work?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If I can work, maybe do a hybrid situation where I'm at home as long as I'm productive and getting the work done, can I complete the work in 32 hours versus 40 hours? As long as the work is getting done and it's quality work and there's an agreement, that's what we're looking for. And years ago, pre-pandemic, that was a thing. The flex schedule was really important for people in large organizations, Fortune 500 organizations, top employers. They recognized that they needed to change how they were doing. It wasn't a Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, sitting at your desk. It was as long as the work is getting done. And of course, that depends on the industry you're in. If you're in the restaurant industry and you open at 8 o'clock and nobody comes in until 9, you're in a little bit of trouble. But it's also the conversation and how do we generate these conversations and set clear expectations and what it looks like from both the employer and the employee. Because I think one of the pieces that we miss out on is the productivity piece. When I
Yeah.
first
Can you talk on that? I mean, I've read different articles and studies, and even have a blog myself in years past about productivity, and a happy, healthy workforce is a more productive workforce. So, what do you see from your experience?
Well, I think there's a difference between working long hours and being busy and then working hours and being productive, and it's being intentional with your time and what you're wanting to accomplish and what you're wanting to do and what you want your employees to do. Just because I want you here 40 hours, if there's no work and they're not being productive, then there's money going out the door for them to just be there. But oftentimes when we can start looking at establishing clear focus on what we want to accomplish, set a timer, if you will, right? Just use a method that's going to help you focus on that activity and get it done and be productive and help minimize those distractions that are coming in the way that are robbing you of being able to get things done.
At M Connections within my own marketing agency, I've found that I don't need to set, specific agency hours in order for my team to be able to get things done. Now, obviously, they need to be able to coordinate with one another in order to have the workflows actually work and be productive and efficient. But I found that, frankly, if someone wants to be done working by 3 o'clock in order to pick her child up from school and spend the afternoon with her child, it doesn't matter to me if she starts work at 6 a.m. to make up for it or whatever that difference might be. But I know not all industries have that flexibility, and there are some times that team member I mentioned where she will have to take a later meeting because that's the time that works for a client. But for folks that are in maybe high pressure industries, how can they start to maybe proactively manage that balance if they can't manage something like flexibility, for instance, with their work hours?
Mhm. I think that's a really good question, Julie. And when I start thinking about what are some of the things that the employers can do to help with it's ask questions.
Mm.
Ask questions up front. Ask them in the interview process. What's going to prevent you from being here?
Mm.
And maybe there's a buddy system. Maybe there's somebody that will come in that earlier shift twice a week or help you come up with a solution. When we can engage the employees in what that solution might look like, everybody's got buy-in. But instead of, I really feel we're in a time where we can't just draw the line in the sand and say, this is it. You either do this or you don't. I think we need to be a little more flexible, but look at what are some options are, work with some troubleshooting, but help them be a part of what that answer is.
Lisa Fisher, thank you so much. This has been so insightful. I appreciate your time today. We'll make sure to link to your website and all of your contact information in our show notes. Lisa, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Julie. I appreciate being here. Have a fabulous day.
Thank you, Lisa. You too. Before you go, make sure to check out Lisa's website, learn more about Lisa, and hit that subscribe button to follow all of our playlists here on Expert Connections, from AI to legal connections, financial connections, and more. We have you covered in our playlist. I'm Julie Holton. We'll see you next time.